Hey, welcome back to another edition of the FSU Simcast. Little Stevie Wonder for that ass. National Signing Day today. Christmas if you're a college football fan. And this is my National Signing Day recap. So I'm going to talk about some of the FSU's targets that announced today. See where FSU's class currently stands on the composite rankings. And then I will compare FSU's class with that of Florida's and Miami's. So let's go ahead and dive right into some of the targets today. There were 5 viable targets, and those were Levi Jones, 4-star linebacker, Leonard Warner, 4-star linebacker, 4-star wide receiver Henry Ruggs, 3-star defensive tackle Neil Farrell, and the White Whale, 5-star and number 1 defensive tackle Marvin Wilson. So let's go ahead and see who went where. All right, this was the first FSU target to announce this morning. 4-star linebacker Leonard Warner, as I mentioned previously, and as you can see in the bottom left, he chose to sign with the Seminoles. Big get because that is a position of need. He's at 6'4", 226. He already has good size. My guess is he'll probably play around 240 once he gets into a college training program. But good get. Nice way to start the morning. The next guy to announce was Levi Jones. Unfortunately, Seminole fans, he chose the Trojans. Not sure what happened. Last night, he was heavily favored to go to FSU, and something changed this morning, and he winds up at Southern Cal. Good for him. The next guy to announce, I believe, was Neil Farrell. He was committed to LSU going into today. Well, he stayed committed, so the Noles do not get the 3-star defensive tackle. The next target to announce was 4-star wide receiver Henry Ruggs. Surprise, an Alabama kid stays and goes to Alabama. And that's the thing. If FSU is in a battle with one particular prospect and they're going up against Bama, moreover, they're going up against Bama when a prospect that they have number 1 on their board as far as receivers go. Like, FSU wasn't going to win that. But nevertheless, so halfway through the day, FSU is batting 1 for 4, so to speak. So not exactly shades of last year where FSU just went 6 of 6 and knocked it out of the park on signing day. But still, it was a good class. Not really worried, but still, you were hoping the last target would choose the Noles, and that's 5-star defensive tackle Marvin Wilson, the number 1 defensive tackle in the country. Well, here he is. And yes, he did indeed sign with the Noles, as you can see at the bottom of the screen there. This is huge. Some of you that listened to this before know that I like the 5-star skill position players, obviously, who doesn't, but for me, give me those fucking 5-star fatty McFatback defensive tackles any day of the week. I will take that pretty much, other than maybe 5-star quarterback. And even those are harder to project. I will take the 5-star defensive tackle. Outstanding. 6'4", 329 pounds. Chances are he gets snaps his freshman year. How many, I don't know. You have Naughty and Christmas playing there. But I would be shocked if he didn't see the field at some point and then pushes for a starting job his sophomore year. So a great cherry on top to the class. So let's see where the class stands. All right, surprise, Bama's at the top for what seems like the 50th year in a row. And just briefly, just to talk about them, 29 commits. And within that, 6 5-stars, 18 4-stars. So 24 of their 29 commits are blue chips. To put that in some perspective, Tennessee, a big rival of theirs, I think had about 28 commits, something like that. 23 were 3-stars. So good luck breaking that losing streak to Bama there, Volunteer fans, if any happen upon this channel. I mean, goddamn. Ohio State with a ridiculous class. Surprise, Urban Meyer. Georgia stays at 3. Southern Cal probably had the biggest day of all the schools. I forgot what it started with or where it started at the beginning of the day, but it finishes number 4 and leapfrogs a bunch of teams. Their ascension means Michigan and Florida State fell, so Florida State ends the cycle at number 6 in the composite. No complaints here. You can see the breakdown of the 5, 4, and 3 stars. And of course, let's look at the rivals. Florida, yep, that's Florida at number 10. They were like 31st just a less than a week ago, and so they had a strong finish. As much as I make fun of Mac, I mean, good job to close. Do I think it's that close to FSU's class? You know, FSU 6, Florida's 10. No, not really, and we'll talk about that shortly, and how FSU's classes compare with Florida and Miami's. Speaking of Miami, here they are at number 13. Richt is recruiting better than Golden, and they I think picked up 3 blue chips today, as did Florida, and Florida picked up yesterday. So at the end, Florida and Miami closed better as far as the raw count of blue chips, but I'll take the number 1 defensive tackle over any of the commits they got. But anyways, that gives you an idea of the rankings. I'm not going to go too far lower. It's top 25. There we go. But now let's go ahead and look at a breakdown of Florida, Miami, and Florida State's classes, and how their top recruits and what caliber of players they are, how they match up. So let's go take a look at that now. All right. Save your jokes for later. I'm not the Excel master, but this table kind of gets the job done. I'll go over this table on the left. Obviously, it's I always use 24/7 composite. So let's go down the list here, and then I made some tiers of rankings. Pretty much arbitrarily chose them. I know ESPN has a 150 and a 300. I think it's as high as any recruiting service goes as far as like ranking names. 5 stars. FSU 4. Rivals 0. 4 stars. 8. UF has the most at 11, and then Miami finished with 10. 3 stars. UF and FSU tied. Miami at 14, but pretty close. Pretty similar. Top 10. 3. 0. 3 zeros. Top 50, 501. Top 100, 713. And now about this tier, you'll start to see UF and Miami's recruits come into play. Top 150, 10, 3, 3. Top 300, 11, 8, and 9. The asterisk is here because one of Miami's 4 stars that committed today, I could not find his name on the player rankings, and I looked all the way down until the 4 stars stopped, which is like 330-ish. So they could have 10 in the top 300, whatever, semantics. But this gives you kind of an idea where the top recruits from each class, where they fall. And obviously the blue chip percent that I beat into the ground, FSU finishes exactly 50, and I rounded Florida's and Miami's class, depending on how high or low the 10th decimal was, obviously. 46 and 42 aren't awful. However, I believe the previous few cycles, if you combine, they were both in like the 30-something percentile blue chip rate, something like that. So if you're going to make up ground, failing to get 50 is not an easy way to make it up. They probably need to really get up there a little higher, probably closer to 60 or in the 60s to really start to make up ground. But whatever. As far as Florida goes, I mentioned how Golden, or I think I mentioned how Richt is recruiting better than Golden. His ceiling is not as high as it was at Georgia. Georgia has their own stadium for one. Miami doesn't. Georgia has better facilities. They just devote more money into football, simply put. So I don't know how high Richt can get a Miami class. I don't know if he can get it up to top 5. As far as UF, as much fun as I make fun of Mac, once again, he did close well. But let's do some more comparing. And here's the blue chip player rankings. So Miami has 10 of them, UF has 11, and Florida State has 12. And this will really give you an idea to kind of see the forest through the trees, because I've already seen it on social media. I've heard it on my local radio on the way home this evening, and I'm sure you probably know a Miami or Florida friend or a fan that you know of that's saying, look, UF closed strong, you know. Miami's 13, 10 and 13, it's not that far behind 6. Well, tell them to pull their heads out their asses and indeed see the forest through the trees, because look at these rankings in comparison. Just going across the board. These are in order. They're blue chips. This is the guy I couldn't find, obviously. Yeah, 2 to 69 and 40, 4, 114, 71, 9 to just look at this. Just going across the board. Just FSU simply getting the more elite, more top-notch players. It's not even a question. So and this is something I spoke about before, but simply put, FSU is once again the kings of the state of Florida in regards to recruiting, and I don't think it's even that close, even though the raw blue chip numbers suggest that the classes are close. They're really not once you look a little deeper. and I think these numbers kind of prove that. Again, not to put down the rivals, I did just compliment Rick and Mac, but just being real, FSU's class is just it's not close in my opinion, and I think these numbers really show that. But let's look at one more thing, one more breakdown. These are positional rankings. Now, I try to keep it very short and limited. I did not feel like doing every fucking position, and by that I mean offensive line. It's offensive guard, offensive tackle, center, defensive end. It's weak side and strong side. Linebacker, it's outside, inside. QB is pro and dual threat. I just chose the best rated recruit from every position, and if it was a kind of a multi-way position as far as rankings go, I just put whatever position they're in. I wasn't about to do every single offensive lineman type, defensive end type, linebacker type. Just wasn't going to. So let's clear that up. So you can see, look at the numbers. Not surprisingly, beating a dead horse here. FSU, in general, and as far as the majority of positions go here, they have the best again. I mean, some of these aren't even close. Some are, but most of them favor FSU. Here's the DT, that's dual threat, just not to confuse you, but this can kind of give you an idea. I mean, some of these are just silly. 4, 12, 1, 8, 8, 1, 3, and then you look over here. Here's a couple single digits, and here's a single digit, but overall, FSU just has the better class. And yeah, I think I'll wrap it up here. I think this gives a pretty clear idea of class comparison. And so let's go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you for listening to another FSU Simulcast. I appreciate it. Just to recap one more time, it wasn't the greatest of signing days, but the class as a whole is pretty goddamn good. I mean, just think about this, folks. FSU secured the top 3, or not top 3, 3 of the top 10 recruits on the composite. Number 2, number 6, and number 9 are all going to Florida State. That's ridiculous. Those could be potentially, you never know what could happen, but potentially just big time contributors, game changers for FSU in the future. We'll have to find out in the next couple of years. But once again, FSU and Jimbo get a top 10 class, and Jimbo hasn't failed to get a top 10 class. He's gotten one every single year, and by and large, he's closer to the top 5. So great class. That wraps up signing day. Now the off season really begins. I will get on here between now and spring practice and figure out some content to give you guys. Anyways, thank you for listening. If you're a first time visitor, feel free to subscribe. And this has been another FSU Simulcast. I'm out.